Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the channel. This is RED DISSECTION and we're deconstructing Manchester United humiliating defeat at the City Ground against Nottingham Forest. United came into this match after a thrilling comeback victory against Aston Villa, and they would have hoped that they would have carried forward that momentum, but unfortunately they reverted back to form, what they have shown all throughout the season. They were uninspired, they were lethargic on the ball, they were pedestrian, there was no movement, there was no circulation of the ball at pace. People were fumbling, they were like tripping over their own feet like Nacho and Rashford. There was nothing, there was no intent, there was no aggression. To be honest, Nottingham Forest deserved the victory, and they only had 2 shots on the target, but that was enough against a dire and desperate Manchester United. Coming to statistics, United had 55% of the ball, but to be honest, it was equally shared. I mean, we had more possession when we went 2-1 down in the last 10 minutes, because we had like 10 minutes of injury time, and they were like just hanging on for that victory. Overall, I think Nottingham Forest not just had better opportunities in terms of their play, they were more intensive in terms of pressing, as well as even the players, they look more technically assured in terms of possession, and they had more passion. Case in example, Morgan Gibbs White getting stuck into our players, unlike somebody like Bruno Fernandes, who is always demonstrating with the referee and throwing his toys out of the pram. Morgan Gibbs White actually used that aggression and anger to inspire his team and scored the winner, which was a sumptuous finish, though I think Onana should have saved it because it wasn't right in the corner. But he doesn't save anything, to be honest. And they had 26 tackles to have 14, so it showed that they were more hungry for it. They wanted it more. Even though we had some opportunities on the counter attack, overall I don't think we created anything apart from the goal, which was a mistake from the keeper Turner, an unforced error. United only had one other shot, which was a Bruno Fernandes deflected volley, which came right in the 95th minute. I mean, we didn't create anything. He was a graveyard shift for the striker, Marcus Rashford, who himself had a very poor game. I mean, his back heel, that gomless back heel for nobody in space. I didn't understand that. But this is the kind of stupid, clueless stuff that we see from Manchester United players on the pitch, because they have no instruction from the manager, and there is no structure to a play. There is no design to the chaos. It's all random. And as the adage goes, when you fail to prepare, you have to be prepared to fail, and we keep on failing under this manager. Coming to play ratings, Andre Onana have to give low score. On the ball, he was decent, but his main job is to keep the ball out of the net. On both the goals, he didn't look convincing. On the first, you can say maybe Rafael Varane obstructed his view, but he didn't even attempt a save on that one. On the second goal, if you look at the replay, it wasn't in the, even though the curl started outside the post, it didn't end up in the top right corner. It was near to the center of the goal, and Onana was just too late for that. His dives are abysmal. I mean, he doesn't save anything. Any shot on target, like they had 2 shots on target, it's a goal, and it comes down to a keeper that cannot cut mustard at this level. Aaron Wan-Bissaka uncharacteristically was clumsy in even one-on-one situations. Ola Aina had him on toast a couple of times. He just beat him from sheer pace, and he couldn't recover. He seems lethargic. He doesn't seem like he is confident on the ball. We know that he's a dud. He's just fumbling over the ball. He just has that lack of balance, and he cannot strike a ball properly anyway. So it wasn't a good performance from Wan-Bissaka. Rafael Varane was also clumsy. I mean, he could have scored an own goal right at the beginning of the first half, because Nottingham Forest, when pressing our centre backs all throughout the match, he had ample time to build from the back, but it is not his forte. He's not good at in terms of progressing the ball well. Especially his passing is it leaves a lot to be desired, and teams actually they have a ploy to allow him to have the ball, because we know that he's not going to do anything with it. And when McTominay came in the second half, we knew that the centre backs were lambs to slaughter. They weren't going to be screened, and the 2 goals resulted from the same kind of cutbacks we've seen all throughout the season. On the first goal, I think Varane was culpable, or part of the blame has to be on his head as well. He didn't intercept the ball. He kind of shied away from it, from the shot. So a bad performance from Rafael Varane. Johnny Evans also had a similar game. Even though in air he was dominant over Chris Wood, he didn't give him much to shout home about. He didn't give him any joy. But against pace, against the likes of Anthony Elanga on the counter attack, we knew that he was in trouble. On both the goals, he didn't look convincing, especially on the second goal. I mean, the player Morgan Gibbs White actually used him as a short dummy, held it beyond him. I don't think it was a good performance, but he's a stopgap, ad hoc appointment in this position. This is what we get for making a 35, 36-year-old as our main centre back in this team. Thiago Dalo was good going forward. Probably one of our more accomplished players in terms of ball control, and also he had a good shot that hit the post in the second half before we had conceded the first goal. If it had gone in, maybe our fortunes would have been different. But anyway, defensively, he's not good enough. Even the likes of Anthony Elanga had so much fun against him, especially cutting back inside, and given both of the goals came from his side. The cutbacks, obviously, the centre defensive midfielder Scott McTominay was the main culprit, but Thiago Dalo didn't do his job well, and it was a bad performance on Dalo. Coming to midfield, Kobe Manu had a mixed bag. He shouldn't have been hooked off at halftime. That was a wrong decision from the manager, but he wasn't having his best game, especially on the ball. Defensively, he was all right. He didn't concede anything. There weren't many errors in his game, but on the ball, he wasn't inspiring. Even though he had loads of opportunity, he was shying away from making any raking passes. Not his best performance. Christian Eriksen was insignificant, invisible. He's a liability against counterattacks. Physically, he cannot pull his weight. These are the types of matches where you actually found out when we have all the ball, the team is in pressing, but he cannot unlock that lock, deep lying low block. He's part of the entourage that is not good enough for this club at this stage. Anthony was atrocious. I mean, the less we talk about him, the more it says, because it's the same things. He cannot go past his defender. He comes back on his left foot. What we can say about him more than Garnacho and Rashford is that he can keep the ball. He can keep possession. Under a system that employs that kind of strategy and style of play, maybe he can work. But certainly under Ten Hag in Manchester United, it's been a horrendous transfer, and we paid over the odds for him. I mean, he's not even good enough to lace Ahmad's boot. You could see in his cameo, Ahmad was so much better than him. It wasn't a surprising performance for Anthony, run of the mill from him. Bruno Fernandes was captain calamitous again. I mean, he just spams the triangle button on FIFA, that L1 triangle. He has no IQ. He has no ability to control the game. He has no ability to take possession of the ball and fight off his opponents. He loses all the duels, physical or otherwise, and all he wants is pace behind defensive lines. He can spam those through balls even without looking at the players and their runs. It is not surprising the second half with the likes of him and McTominay and Eriksen, we conceded 2 goals, and we were conceding so many counter-attacking opportunities. Him being a captain is an absolute joke and a travesty for this club. Alejandro Garnacho was pocketed by Montiel, his compatriot. You could see from the beginning of the match that Montiel had the better of him. He knew what kind of player he is and that he's not good enough. Technically, he's not good enough. I mean, he's not assured on the ball. He can't control it. He kept on fumbling and tripping on his own feet. He has no balance. He has no body strength. Because he didn't get any space because of the low block. Against a close defense like that, he's useless, absolutely useless. Even though he's young, he's not good enough for this club and this team. Marcus Rashford was abysmal. I mean, he was back to his form. Against Villa, he showed some promise, but he played on his favorite left wing position. He was brought back into the number 9 position. I don't know why Ten Hag keeps doing it. It would have been better if he had been given that left wing position and maybe started with the false 9. Maybe even McTominay could have played that position, but Rashford cannot play any other position than left wing, and even there he's not good enough. The fact that we have just given him a multi-million-dollar extension, a new contract rather, is symptomatic of the state the club is in. Is total shambles. Going to substitutions, and the moment that changed the match or decided the fate of the match, it was McTominay's substitution for Kobe Maino. Ten Hag came up with some absolutely grade A waffle by telling us that it was a tactical decision. He has enough youthful exuberance and energy to last another 90 minutes for sure. I mean, you don't play against Wigan for another week. Maino wasn't having a terrible game. On the ball, he wasn't good. But what does McTominay give on the ball more than Maino does? And the fact that rather than playing or pushing Eriksen in that deeper position, and pushing McTominay, to support Marcus Rashford in the number 10 position or a second striker even. And how put him in that deep lying defensive midfielder position. He doesn't know anything about that position. We've seen him. Even with the likes of Fred, he was culpable for both the goals. He has no clue about runners. He has no clue about positional awareness. I'm sure Bruno Rashford will be the reason why this manager gets the sack in the end. Ahmad came on for Anthony and, looked a different player altogether. I mean, he was, in terms of quality, he was the best player on the pitch apart from ELANGA and Morgan Gibbs-White. He was so calm on the ball. He was, his ball control, his small touches, his ability to, twist and turn. It was so nice to see him after so many months, an injury layoff. It was his first match, and he looked bright, and he looked our best player by far. And I think he should be given more opportunity. I think he'll definitely, if given an opportunity, he'll cement his position on that right wing. But I have no confidence in Ten Hag choosing technical players above his, above his adopted sons like Rashford and Anthony. And I like to see Anthony being relegated to the bench for the foreseeable future. I think Ahmad was our best player on the night. Reguilon came on in late, very late, around 90 minutes. I don't understand with late substitution. If he had to bring him on, he should have come around 70-minute mark. He didn't have anything to do in that match. I mean, obviously there was a few corners and few crosses from his side, but he didn't have any impact on the game. Obviously, it was his last match. I guess that was a sentimental tokenism from Ten Hag, just giving him one last run before he goes back to his employers. It wasn't an inspired loan. It wasn't a loan that was ever going to work out. He's not good enough. I'd rather see someone like Alvaro Fernandez who was sent on loan than see Reguilon play. He's never been good enough, and it was a terrible loan move on United's part, and also for Reguilon. I don't understand why did he come. He hasn't been given even opportunities. I mean, Dalo has been starting on left hand side. Amrabat has been starting on left back position even when Reguilon has been fit. So it was a terrible move for both the player and the team. The charge sheet against Erik ten Hag is disastrous. There are a litany of charges against him. I mean, this is first time we've lost 5 games in December. This is the worst tally of points and goal scored that we've had at this stage or halfway point in a season. We scored the lowest amount of goals apart from 2 teams. We've scored even less than Luton Town, which is shocking. Obviously, in Champions League, we were bottom of our group with the poorest defensive record of any English team ever in the Champions League. We've lost 9 of the 20 Premier League matches. We've lost 21 matches in this calendar year, which is unprecedented. I mean, I haven't seen this kind of performance ever. Not even under Ole or Ragnick, we were so bad and clueless. Our goal difference is -4. I mean, still minus. And we have played 20 games in the Premier League, more than half. And the worst part is we don't compete against any team. Even the likes of Nottingham Forest, even their players look better, much better technically than our players, let alone in terms of spirit and passion. Even somebody like Anthony Elanga, who was never given a chance by Ten Hag and was allowed to leave from pile 3, 15 million pounds. He's double the player Anthony is, or even Garnacho. Even in this match, Anthony Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White were miles ahead of any of our players, technically, physically, in terms of spirit, in terms of passion. Ten Hag needs to be tried in The Hague for his football crimes. Ten Hag is a fraud and he's a criminal. He's killed all our hopes in terms of seeing any kind of attractive football, any kinds of possession-based system of play. We haven't seen anything. Last season was all about stopgap arrangement, ad hocism, just playing for the results. It wasn't good even last year. The football, the quality of a play wasn't good enough. We scored only 58 goals in the league all throughout last season. So it wasn't good enough. But this season, it's been even worse. It's probably the worst season I've ever seen for Manchester United. And he's spent like 400 million pounds on his own players who he doesn't even play. The likes of Mason Mount, we haven't even seen him. The likes of Anthony, he's hardly played. Whenever he's played, he's stunk the place out. His insistence on playing Scott McTominay and Bruno Fernandes, both being captain. McTominay in a games against Liverpool and Bruno Fernandes being the club captain. For goodness sake, this has been a complete train wreck. But it's clear what needs to be done. Ten Hag has to go. He has to get the sack. And I think the fact that we only have 2 matches in January, this is the best and opportune time to just make that change. Just rip the band-aid off and just let him go. Let's just move on, and maybe it's an interim, maybe it's a permanent appointment. I don't know. Just get somebody else in his place and give us an opportunity to qualify for the Champions League. Ten Hag isn't good enough. The fairy tale has ended in a tragedy, and the more it drags on, the more painful it gets. The time has come to say our goodbyes and just thanks Ten Hag for that one trophy that we didn't deserve to win anyway, and just cut our loss here at this point. Obviously, we'll have the FA Cup game next Monday, so we'll be back with the Red Prep show. Before that, we'll be continuing our career season in EAFC mode. Maybe we can win our first trophy in that. We are in the Carling Cup final against Tottenham, and we'll see you for that. So until then, take care, do good, pray for Palestinians, all the oppressed people all across the globe, man, woman, child. Assalamu alaikum.